Independence, freedom, yes, finally, we will be free from the clutches of the European Union. Will we now be doomed? Or will we soar high? Will we be the nation of achievers or will we be the nation of losers? Have we got anything to be proud of? What should be our priorities and how should we be moving forward? Watch out the answers to these questions in this video. UK joined the EU in 1973. That time, of course, it seemed to be a fantastic idea, and probably it was. But things either evolve and get better or degrade and face ignominy. The risks, restrictions and limitations of staying in far outweighed its benefits, eventually resulting in a referendum being called. It is but obvious. And this democratic exercise, as I said, called as referendum, took place on, that was Thursday, 23rd of June 2016. The question on the ballot paper was, should the United Kingdom remain a member of the European Union or leave the European Union? Sorry, with the responses to the question to be marked with a single cross, remain a member of the European Union, first question, or leave the European Union. And in a response to this question, 17.4 million voted to leave and 15.2 million voted to remain. The leavers won the referendum. So this withdrawal agreement is now passed by the Parliament and also has got a royal assent, making it a law. And thus we will be leaving the EU today. Finally, it was a long and frustrating struggle, guys, to free ourselves from autocratic, bureaucratic and undemocratic construct called as EU. Finally, we will be able to run our country the way we like it and will be able to steer it at the speed that we want. So, what should the next steps be? What should we be doing on a priority basis? These are the questions. What will the mood going to be from tomorrow? Of course, the naysayers, the pessimists will now be predicting doomsday for our country. They will find many studies, statistics and whatnot to see us fail. But I am an optimist. Being British apparently has been seen to be cribbing, like we are good at cribbing, right? We crib about food, we crib about weather, we crib about not playing well in cricket, in football and basically everything. We somehow have become self-deprecating, lot, who feel greatness in self-pity, right? Now, let me ask you something. Is it really that bad, guys? Why do we cringe on being optimistic? Why are we self-defeating about ourselves? You may ask, you may smirk and ask, what is there to be positive about? Let me take you on a positivity ride, a ride of positivity that this country has offered to the world and still offers. Are you ready? Are you ready? Buckle up your seats and let's get started. Number one, our queen. She really is the best, isn't she, guys? Wise, dignified, politically neutral, a magnificent ambassador for British values and a unifying figurehead in whom we can also take we can all take great pride. Number two, imagination. Now, let's imagine this for a moment. Imagination, football, golf, cricket, tiddlywinks, croquet, the Spitfire, railways, steam engines, hovercraft, penicillin, gravity, longitude, the jet engine, the World Wide Web, evolution, sticky toffee pudding, the saucy seaside postcard, the stand, and then the list is almost endless. We discovered or invented all of them. How's that? Then comes third, university, science, technology, engineering and maths, STEM, right? Our education system is valued the world over. We have amazing universities that are leading the research and education over many centuries. And that is why it is no wonder why the budding scientists, budding students flock to our shores of this island. Example, Oxford, Cambridge, UCL, King's College, LSE, the Imperial Universities of Exeter, Edinburgh, Manchester, Bristol, Warwick, and so on and so forth. The sandwich. No, I'm not hungry. The sandwich, right? Think of the man hours. Think of the man hours that have been saved thanks to the Earl of Sandwich's brilliant idea of placing a savoury filling between two pieces of bread. Without the sandwich, guys, imagine, and the Industrial Revolution, of course, the world economy would be stuck almost in the dark ages. Great invention. Shakespeare and company, right? Few of the other countries in the world can manage more than just about one great writer apiece. The French have Molière, the Germans Goethe, and the Spanish Cervantes. But we have got the whole lot. We have got them coming out of our ears. Not just Shakespeare, but also Chaucer, Milton, the Romantics, Austen, George Eliot, Dickens, and so on. Pop music, right? So those US bluesmen may have started, but we perfected it. We have given the world the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, the Led Zeppelin, the Oasis, the Keith Harris, Orville, and so on and so forth. Morris dancing, haha, that's arcane, gloriously eccentric, splendid, ridiculous. It is the quintessence of the Britishness. What else? Oh yeah, how can we forget? Fantastic weather. No, not the weather itself, obviously. Our weather is rubbish. But it also happens to be one of the main things that has made us great. Its changeability, guys, has made us adaptable. Its cold misery has made us stoical. Its remarkable ability to confound all forecasts, has given us a wonderful sense of humor. Other countries have to wait 4 months for the weather to change, but we get 4 weathers in one day. And how's that? Isn't it something unique that we have got, guys? Cricket. You want to speak about that? Very briefly, England is officially the best cricket team in the world. Not just better than Albania and Moldova, but actually better than all the countries that used to thrash us before, like India, Pakistan, Australia, and West Indies. Then we come to our countryside, from highland moorland to the coves and combes of the southwest. Britain really does have the most, the most lushly perfect countryside anywhere in the world. Our beaches and the coastlines are fantastic. Gardens, now you might be thinking, what am I saying gardens? It may actually be a cliche, but it is true. That we are the only country in the world that knows how to do a proper garden. In America, they just have boring, bare outside bits they call yards. In France, they grow vegetables where the flowers should be blooming. In Japan, they don't even use plants, they use pebbles. Our gardens have the lot. Manicured lawns, rose beds, ponds, croquet, gnomes, and so on. And then comes the tea. It is impossible to get a good cup of tea anywhere in the world outside Britain. Here tea is the mainstay of the British character and the solution to every problem. Economy collapsing, home being repossessed, never mind, a nice cuppa will sort you out. Shale gas, now this is a new discovery. It's the best thing happened to the British economy since the Industrial Revolution, right? Very important. Buried deep below the ground at Blackpool, they have just discovered 200 trillion cubic feet of the stuff. Enough to give Britain many decades worth of cheap, clean energy that actually works. Then, guys, respect our armed forces. Our armed forces, the shining example of discipline, courage, and valor, no doubt, period. Then, foreign nasties. What do you mean by foreign nasties? Like man-eating sharks, killer crocodiles, deadly venomous snakes, poisonous spiders, malarial mosquitoes. Truly, we are an island blessed, for not one of these menaces lives here. It's almost as if God was trying to tell us something about how special we are. And guys, finally, wonderfully unique, full English breakfast. We do sausage, bacon, black pudding, grilled tomato, fried egg, mushrooms, baked beans, toast. The French do croissant, the Germans do funny black bread, and the Americans do muffins. Any competition whatsoever? Absolutely not. So the list of what can we be proud of is indeed long, as we have just seen, guys. But I also do agree that we cannot just sit on these laurels and do nothing. Simple. We indeed have to look forward and carve our own future. That is very important. So what should we be doing? Where should we be focusing? What we are saying is the meaning of actual freedom. What is it? So what can we do with this freedom that we are going to get today? Let us glance through the many things that we can now do. Right? Number one, our parliament and courts will once again be the final word in domestic matters. Meaning, we can untie ourselves from burdensome regulations and relieve ourselves from maverick solicitors by overruling and marauding the verdicts passed by our Supreme Court, by the ECJ, the European Court of Justice. Compliance is expensive, guys, and deregulation will accelerate innovation as businesses find they can be nimbler and more creative. The country as a whole will become more competitive by freeing business to work in ways that suit the UK and not the EU 27. We could create any number of tax incentives to attract global businesses to set up new offices and jobs here in Britain, because we would be free to set corporation tax and VAT as we please. So, with a free hand, the UK can immediately pursue trade deals with other countries, which we are legally prevented, or which we were legally prevented from pursuing while we are a member of the EU. So far, the focus has been on a UK-US free trade agreement. But before that, the initial challenge for Britain will be to establish a rational set of priorities. This systematic rationalization and prioritization regarding trade policy is the key, because we've got limited resources, limited budget, and obviously limited time we have at our disposal. Trade negotiations should be a major priority for this government, because good agreements have the potential to turbocharge Britain's economy. So, as far as prioritizing negotiations, the starting point must of course be the free trade agreement with the EU, which is going to happen and which will continue. Those negotiations must not deny, however, the UK the opportunity to strike high quality agreements with other countries. Logically, an FTA, a free trade agreement with the US, should be the next priority, right? It is the UK's largest individual trading partner already, and has a government to conclude agreement, and it's a keen government to conclude an agreement and to do it quickly, right? So they are keen as well. So that should be the next thing in parallel with the EU, right? In principle, it would be best to pick low-hanging fruit, right? And prioritize countries like Canada and Japan, which already have trade agreements with the EU. Become simple. As well as Australia, New Zealand, and of course the US. So in effect, English-speaking countries or Commonwealth countries, right? But there is a simpler way, even simpler way to sequence trade negotiations than this, right? So the UK could sign on to existing plurilateral trade agreements, thereby concluding quick market outcomes with relatively little diplomatic pain. Now, what do I mean by this? So believe me, there are quite a lot of these plurilateral trade agreements across the world. Now, the most attractive of these agreements is as the name suggests, comprehensive and progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. So that is CPTPP. So this CPTPP is a high quality free trade agreement which binds together, now look at these countries, beautiful, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Japan, Singapore, Vietnam, Mexico, Malaysia, Peru, Chile and Brunei, 11 countries. So the CPTPP covers nearly 14% of the global economy and is the third largest free trade area in the world. So you would ask, what are the benefits of joining this CPTPP? So to sign on to the groundbreaking agreement would give the UK access to markets which constitute 13% of global GDP. Now to put that into context, the EU, including the UK, constitutes 16% of global GDP. So what's more, most of these markets are in the fast-growing Asia-Pacific region. If Britain is to become the global player that Boris Johnson wants it to be, then it has to engage more strategically in the Asia-Pacific. The center of global gravity is fast moving away from the North Atlantic to the Pacific, and Britain needs to be part of that action. Also, there is this CanZ UK initiative. It is a well advanced proposal for a trade deal with Canada and New Zealand and has the enthusiastic backing of the leaders of those countries. A handful of deals like these would be of immense benefit to the UK, allowing us to export much more cheaply to markets around the world. As we are the fifth largest economy, guys, be proud of that. Fifth largest economy in the world, many more will follow. Tariff-free access to the lucrative British market will be a hot commodity around the world. Every trade deal we do means cheaper exporting for our businesses, it's great news, and cheaper products for our consumers. Win-win. Why not? Ladies and gentlemen, if you seek opportunities, you will find opportunities. That is true in almost any sector. So let us briefly look at the opportunities for the scientific community. Important to progress in this knowledge economy, right? One of the major opportunities we now have is to free us from the constructive, claustrophobic and regressive regulation and compliance when we were part of the EU. We need light touch regulation similar to Switzerland so that Britain can become a global leader in life sciences, data, genomics, regenerative medicine and other innovation based fields. So if our future generation has to survive in this fiercely competitive knowledge economy, then in addition to just the age old 3 R's like the reading, writing, arithmetic, we ought to have STEM ingrained in our schools. And you're saying, what is that STEM? They are science, technology, engineering and maths. Now these are the 4 pillars of the new knowledge era that will allow us and our next generation to remain in the race where India, China, US and the other countries have already had a head start. I hope that the government shares these aspirations. If it does, guys, then this small country, believe me, could on its own succeed in converting science and innovation into economic growth. Extremely important. Our future global role and standing will depend crucially on what we do at home. To govern is to choose, said Francois Mitterrand. We have at last a government that can choose, and it must. History will not forgive failure now. Who can bring all these things together? Economic, cultural, political, strategic, and set a course to replace the half-hearted Eurocentrism of the past half century. We have not had a great global strategist since Churchill, and before him Salisbury, and before him Palmerston. They are few and far between. But we need one now with the brains, vision, and courage to show us the way through the dangerous labyrinth the world has become. Can it be Boris? Will it be Boris? Should it be Boris? I personally think yes. He has got a fantastic team of go-getters and doers, and who are all in alignment with the PM. Plus now he doesn't have to rely on the crutches of support from either the Lib Dems or the DUP or from anyone for that matter, right? So he is the person who dares to dream. He is the person who raises confidence and optimism, and is the person who is not shy to speak up his mind. We all know that. So he is the one who has a vision to think that Britain can be the greatest country on earth. If you want to galvanize a country that has recently been through a divisive referendum, then we have got to have a positive approach. We have to get them on board, the bruised souls, and steam ahead as a confident, powerful, united country. Even after total annihilation, we have examples of countries who have risen like sphinx after the Second World War. And I'm talking about Germany and Japan. We are still a much better place as compared to them after the war. You call it an irony or karma or stroke of destiny. Here I'm going to modify the historic speech delivered by Jawaharlal Nehru when India became free from the colonial British Raj. Few years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially. At 11 p.m., when the world sleeps, UK will awake to sovereignty and freedom. A moment comes, which comes but rarely in history, when we step out from the old to new, when an age ends and when the soul of the nation, long suppressed, finds utterance. The ambition of this nation is to be the best, is to be the beacon of democracy, progress, and freedom. So long as we achieve that, our work will not be over. We have recently shown that getting everything for free without doing anything is a fallacy. Our society will reward the hard work, and so we have to labor and to work hard to give reality to our dreams. Those dreams are not only for the UK, but they are also for the world. Long live the Queen, long live the nation. Thank you and enjoy.